What's going on, everybody? Hope everyone is having a great night so far. I'm here with my co-host Brad,
What's
going
going on?
live tonight. So much to talk about, Brad. I know we weren't able to get together after the UVA game. You're feeling a little under the weather. Family's feeling great now, which is great.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Definitely blessed to have your family feeling better now. And we didn't really get to talk much about the UVA game, get together and kind of share our thoughts. But Brad, first overall thoughts of the game. I know it's a lot of mixed reviews by the fan base. At least we can all agree we won the football game, which is nice. But everyone has a different outcome of how the game was played. So kind of what were your overall thoughts of the game?
Yeah, we don't got to dig too deep into it, just because it happened. It seems like a little while ago now, but overall, I felt like the team itself, did an okay job, maybe average, below average at best. I wasn't very impressed with our offense, especially the play calling after the first quarter. Like that first drive, man, it almost felt like Dan Enos against Florida, man. Like that first drive, it was just like scripted so well. And we came out the gate where it was like, all right, we're gonna blow the top off. We finally got the deep ball. We got Mallory going early. And we kind of knew going into the football game that they were without both of their safeties. They had a corner, I believe, that was out as well. So that's three guys in the secondary that they were without. And I thought we were going to utilize that deep ball game a little bit more.
Right.
But it seemed like after that first drive, we kind of went away from it. I was impressed with the receivers as a whole. I thought Mike Harley, Mark Pope stepped up pretty well and did their jobs. Still a little disappointed in a guy like D. Wiggins. This is a year that I think we all thought this would be like his breakout year. Last year, he was kind of the only guy besides KJ that kind of did something in the receiving group. So I wanted this to be that next step to where he could get almost 900 or 1,000 yards. And he seems like he's the third, fourth best receiver on the team right now.
Right.
You got another guy like Jeremiah Payton, who we thought all would be a superb player this year since we didn't get to see him last year. But, I mean, Marshall Few only has like 6 yards less than him right now going into the season. So it's like he's non-existent. I thought the offensive line didn't do that well. I thought that was probably the worst position group out of everybody. I would say is the offensive line group. I know a lot of people this whole season, especially me, has given a lot of heat on Blake Baker and what he calls as far as a defensive play call, the whole bend, don't break. And I hate it. I got to say, man, I hate it. But it's winning us football games. You know, it doesn't look good. But at the end of the day, when you look at college football, especially this year being a weird year, every defense in the country is giving up a lot of yards. I mean, you pull up the Alabamas, the LSUs. I mean, any SEC team, along with most ACC teams and Big 10, Big 12 teams, they're all giving up a lot of yards, and we're doing a pretty good job at that. The bend don't break mentality, it is awful just because, I mean, we're giving them so much cushion to where, I mean, 10 yards is easy for teams, but we're not giving up the big plays down the field, which is what's helped us stay in football games. I mean, you look at the Virginia game, our defense struggled in the first half with that 3 quarterback rotation. I thought that 3 quarterback rotation was pretty smart on Virginia's part. It was something that we couldn't game plan for. It was something that no one really has seen. I thought it was similar to the UAB scheme that they ran as far as on defense. How it was a defensive scheme that we were never used to seeing on film, similar to Virginia's 3 quarterback system. So I think the first half, the defense was trying to figure out exactly what to do, how to go with this. And in the second half, you saw that they clamped down and they did their job in the second half. I think this game should have easily been blown out if we would have put the gas on the pedal and maybe threw the ball deep. But all in all, man, the big points to me was red zone. Going into that game, we were a team that were really good in the red zone. And I believe we had 15 plays in the red zone, only 13 total yards out of those 15 plays, and we only ended up with 3 points out of 6 tries, which is terrible. That alone is, I mean, you're talking 21 to 24 points right there that we're leaving on the scoreboard. The other thing that's popped out to me was De'Aaron King's RPO running ability. I thought a lot of the times he should have kept the football a lot instead of handing it off. And again, that goes back to him not getting used to the RPO. If anyone that's watching that is confused on why he doesn't keep the ball a lot, he's not used to it. He's never ran the play, the RPO in high school or at Houston. So this is all new to him. As easy as it looks, it's not. But overall, we got the W. So it's hard to get W's in college football, especially this year. So I'm going to take it. But the most scariest thing to me now is this bye week.
Right.
We're 0-4 in the bye week. And as much as I don't want to say this, I hope it doesn't bite me in the butt. But out of every team in the ACC I've looked at, I wouldn't mind playing NC State right about now. They're another team, another program that they might possibly start a true freshman at quarterback against us in Finley. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, NC State, they're down to their third-string quarterback, and I think he's the brother of Ryan Finley. I could be wrong. He's a pretty good college quarterback for NC State. I think he's in the NFL currently. But he looked pretty good against UNC. Disadvantage to Miami, there's not a lot of film on him, obviously, since that was his first game. Also, I mean, he's NC State's third-string quarterback. I like to simplify things. If Miami does lose to NC State, which is not a good football team, and they lose to a third-string quarterback, technically starting his first game since he did not start against North Carolina, I mean, you're just not a good football team. Manny Diaz, once again, he's not preparing his football team during the bye weeks. If you go 0-5 after NC State, there is a problem. Okay, there is a big problem.
So, if we go 0-5 and we lose to NC State, Manny Diaz is not the head coach to take us to the next level.
Exactly.
Sorry. That's the thing. Like, can you honestly I love the Hurricanes like everybody else, man. But if you can close your eyes and just think of Manny Diaz as a head coach, and you honestly think he could take a team to the playoffs, I don't think so right now. I don't know if he's the guy yet. I think he's made a lot of changes that we all been asking for.
Yes.
But we're still seeing things that need to be done. I mean, as far as the culture thing, I mean, you talk about the Mike Harley post-interview comments, how the receivers aren't pretty much putting in the work. Like, that was a big red flag right there.
That was I'm
Manny
surprised I got out.
Manny Diaz doing the whole slip and slide after the game, after barely beating a Virginia team. Like, I'm sorry, but Dabo Swinney, Nick Saban, those guys are going into the locker room fierce, pissed off. Their interview conference is nothing positive. It's all what we need to work on.
Right.
I think we do need a little bit more discipline in that aspect. You look at the interview yesterday or the day before with Coach Likens, how he talks about the DBS, right? To don't get bullied by these receivers when the ball's in the air, and the aggressiveness that you could see on him when they were doing the interview through Zoom. That's the type of mentality that we need, like guys like that to bring that energy.
Brad, I honestly feel like there's kind of a miscommunication. I don't know if that's the word for it offensively, but we're going through a little bit of a funk. First couple games of the season, our run game was moving the offense. Mm-hmm. Cam Harris seemed like he was going to break 1,000 yards. People were like, he's going to declare early. He's going to be a top NFL draft pick, first 3 rounds. We basically benched him the entire second half against UVA. He tweets out he deserves more respect. I mean, what do you think's going on? Because you have to rely on a run game eventually to be successful offensively, because it's really just a flip-flop, and our run game has been completely awful the past 3 games. It really has. 11 rushes against Clemson. They virtually did nothing against UVA. First half was okay against Pittsburgh, but the second half, it wasn't even there. Don Chaney's probably been our best running back, but it's not really saying much. And then Red Zone's been awful running the football. Just completely awful.
For sure. But, I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. You talk about those last 3 teams that we played, those are all way better defenses than what we played before. Not to mention they have film now. They have a blueprint on how to kind of stop De'Aaron King. You realize now that everybody's stacking the box on our offense because they're wanting Derek King to beat them deep, which we haven't really proven yet, right? So every team we're going to face, doesn't matter who, they're going to stack the box. So that is hard on our offense alone, to where everybody knows that they're going to play containment football and they're going to already be in those run gaps. Not to mention our offensive line is not getting the push that it needs to. So, I mean, with an offensive line like us that is struggling in the run game,
Right.
and then every team that we face is already stacking the box, and we're not doing the proper adjustments to throw the ball deep to kind of keep the defense off balance, that's where we're messing up. I think if Derek King keeps the football in a couple of these RPOs and breaks it to about a 15, 20, 25-yard run, something similar you saw him do at Houston plenty of times, I think we can start to get the run game going a little bit easier to where it's not so predictable.
Right. I agree. We see a lot of these read options, inside zone reads. I feel like a lot of times Derek King keeps the football, he takes off, he gets a 20-yard gain. I mean, it seems like it's an easy option for him to take, but he continuously gives it to the running back. I would like to see him be more aggressive running the football as well, incorporate him in the run game.
And let's not forget, Paul. Let's not forget. I mean, Rhett Lashley this past game, he saw that Virginia was stopping the run. So what did he do? He did a lot of quick passes. There was like 4 or 5 quick passes that we did in a row in a series, and that was kind of our extended run play, right? So instead of actually having physical run plays, we did a lot of quick passes to Mark Pope, Mike Harley. I believe that's the series that Mark Pope dropped 1 or 2 passes, but we were getting first down after first down just off of 2 or 3 yard passes that were going for about 9 to 15 yards. That's our extended run play that we need to start doing if we're realizing that these teams are stacking the box.
And that's one thing I want to see as well, just be more aggressive throwing the football. I feel like at times, specifically in the red zone, we run replicated plays running the football. It's just we're running up the middle. It's like, hey, like we understand we're going to run the football up the middle. Can we just mix it up a little bit? I mean, you're not fooling anyone.
Well, here's the problem, Paul, is that we don't have any receivers to mix it up with. You know what I mean? That's our problem. Once we get in the red zone, our playbook starts to get very slim because we don't have the proper receivers that we talk about that want to go up and be physical and get those balls. Right. My question is, why do we not have Mallory lined up on the outside every single time?
Yes,
if there's a corner that is smaller than 6 foot, I don't care who it is over there. You throw a fade to the goal line post and you let Mallory jump up and get it every single time. If he doesn't want to go and get it, put Michael Redding in. Let him do it. I know he was down with the COVID virus this past weekend, but I mean, these are guys that will at least go up and get the ball. And I think that's what we need. We need to put the playmakers in the right positions, which I don't think we still haven't done.
Will Mallory had 2 receptions against UVA. I have the stats right here with 58 receiving yards. He's averaging 29 yards per reception. That's a lot of yards. We should give him more targets, more looks. Brevin Jordan's not there. Will Mallory was 6'5". He ran track and field in the state of Florida, where there's a lot of fast athletes. Let's give him a look. He can play wide receiver at the Power 5 level. He's just a big body. It's perfect to put him at tight end. I would like to see him more utilized.
For sure, and I can agree with that. But at the same time, I think we utilized everybody pretty well. If you look at the stat sheet, our receivers did the job as far as stats. If you looked at our complete box score, you would have no idea that we had only 19 points. Again, it goes back to my point earlier with the red zone. We have been a very good red zone team all year. This Virginia team contained us to where we only had 3 points in the red zone off of 6 tries. Right. So you have 6 tries in the red zone and you only come up with 3 points. That's not good. I mean, that's 21 to 28 points left off the scoreboard. Not to mention at the end of the football game, we kind of needed the ball, and we could have easily put some more points on the board. And then you go back to that Mark Pope miss attempt by King late in the game. That's another touchdown right there. That post, if he would have caught that, that would have been another 6.
Right. One of the last drives of the game, Mike Harley down the middle.
Yeah, Mike Harley.
Easy points right there. We missed an opportunity where we were literally at like the 1 or 2 yard line, and then we just couldn't finish in that drive. Don Chaney was moving the football well. So again, running up the middle, we got stuffed. Also, the blocked field goal early in the game. So that's probably 17 points right there. That adds up to 36-14 as your final score if we finish those drives. So, yeah, no, the game could have been a lot bigger in margin. Brad, what do you think offensive line, what's going on? Beginning of the year, I think we gave up only 1 to 3 sacks. I think the last couple games we've given up 5 sacks or more. What do you think is going on there?
So I know Jared Williams hasn't been completely healthy since the Clemson game. He's been struggling with a hand injury, it seems like, for a while. From what I'm told, he's in a cast currently. So I'm kind of glad there's a bye week right now. But I think the tackles are kind of struggling along with Scaife. Scaife alone, to me, that Virginia game, he got bullied a lot, man. There were a few plays where he was on his ass a few times. I was surprised by that. Scaife is starting to disappoint me. But we just need a little bit more consistency, man. Unfortunately, I just hope we could just get W's, man. I'm kind of at the point now where I don't want to keep predicting football games every week, because every time we look at a team on the schedule, we're like, all right, we should beat them by 21, 28 points. And then ends up being a dogfight every time. But at the end of the day, you watch college football every weekend, especially with this year. It's hard to consistently win football games. It's hard to consistently play on the field every single week with your full roster. And we have, for the most part, been able to do that. So at the end of the day, I just hope we keep getting W's. I think this bye week right here is a very telling story for Manny Diaz. I think this will kind of set the story for him in his book, and this will be a new chapter for him. Can he get past a bye week finally and hopefully take this season to the 2017 season and kind of keep it up and keep that momentum going? Because if we don't get past this bye week, Paul, and if we lose to NC State, I'm thinking 3 or 4 losses.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
I agree.
I think this will start to bring a snowball effect. And it's weird, man, because we play a Pittsburgh team who's a lot better on defense. You're talking about the number 1 defensive line in the country pretty much. After playing that football team, we put up 31 points. And I came after that game, and I felt good about this football team, even though some people were still pissed off with the defense, which I understand. But after putting up 31 points on a defense like Pittsburgh, I was like, okay, this could be a team that we could really run the table. We can actually do things. But then the following week, you go play a Virginia team that allows 34 points a game, and a defensive line that is nowhere near as good as Clemson or Pittsburgh that we have just seen. And our offensive line struggled even more. Our offensive play calling didn't get better, and we only put up 19 points. So I went from 1 week of Pittsburgh feeling like this team could run the table to now I honestly think this NC State game could be the biggest game of the year for us, because if we don't win this game, I could see 4 losses.
I love it. I feel like every game we say that this is the biggest game of Manny Diaz's career, biggest game of the year. And it's true. You know, this is his second year. Usually we saw Kirby Smart make that jump. Pete Carroll with University of Southern California, he made that big jump. You know, this is a big year in Manny Diaz's coaching career. Talks a big game, makes a lot of changes. Can he back it up? Can he do more actions than make more noise?
Correct. And that's the thing, Paul. Like he puts a lot of this on him because of the whole politician talk. But at the same time, us as Hurricane fans, we're a fan base that gets very overhyped very quickly. We demand a lot from these football players and from these coaches very quick. And I hate to say this, but a lot of people try to compare this football team, especially Manny Diaz, to a Nick Saban, to a Dabo Swinney, as far as their mentality and how they bring themselves to a podium, into a football team, into a locker room. But unfortunately, you can't really do that right now. And I hate to do this, but Manny Diaz is only in his second year as a head coach.
Right.
If we're going to compare him to a Dabo Swinney, we need to compare him to that 6-6 Dabo Swinney, his second year at Clemson, where he was at the same time jumping up and down when he was beating a Wake Forest or a Syracuse. Okay. So I understand him still doing the rah-rah after a terrible win over Virginia. But hey, Dabo Swinney was doing that his second year as a head coach as well. So we can't really compare the two as far as now. Dabo Swinney has what, 9th, 10th year as a head coach with a elite program, and a Manny Diaz who's trying to take over a program that we've struggled for a while now. And
Brad.
we're gonna continue to do well. I think the blueprint to all of this is this next class coming in.
Yeah, that is true.
That will be the blueprint, the stepping stone, almost like the Simba to the Lion King, right?
Speaking of the next class, there's a lot of great players on the defensive side of the football. Cam Kitchens, James Williams. Some say the best safeties in South Florida.
Yeah.
A lot of people have been on this Miami Hurricanes defense a lot. I feel like since Blake Baker took this job, the expectations were set very high for him. I mean, specifically, Manny Diaz was the former defensive coordinator. 6 games going into Blake Baker's second year at Miami. How satisfied are you, Brad, with Blake Baker's performance overall? Because, I mean, it's either you love him or you don't. There's really no middle.
No, I mean, I'm still one of those guys where I think if us as Miami fans want to see consistency every single week and play at that elite level and consistently be like in the playoffs or a top 7, top 10 team, Blake Baker just isn't the guy. I think we need a better defensive coordinator.
I'll say this, the bend don't break. They say it's a good coverage against the spread. It leaves a lot of space open, like you said previously. I feel like if you just run quick, short passes, it should be easy 5 or 6 yards every time. I think Sam Howell against UNC did a very good job at breaking down that defense. Philip Longo was their OC. Last year when we played UNC, like we saw with Trevor Lawrence against Clemson, he literally picked us apart. So I'm very I'm going to evaluate every coach on the staff at the end of the year. At the end of the day, Blake Baker is a Manny Diaz guy. So I personally don't think he's going anywhere. That is a pupil of the Manny Diaz coaching tree, kind of similar of Al Golden and Mark D'Onofrio. So we're going to see a lot from Manny Diaz after this year. But if we keep winning football games, if Miami finishes 10-1, 10-2, whatever the record is, I think he stays. Now, Brad, want to move over from Blake Baker real quick, talk about this defensive line. I feel like we didn't apply a lot of pressure on UVA, and that sets the tone for the game, is applying pressure to the quarterback for Miami against Florida State. That really made an impact on this team. We created a lot of turnovers, and that's Miami's identity. Get to the quarterback and create turnovers.
So, I mean, part of that has to do with Blake Baker. We just talked about him, but part of that half of that alone is Blake Baker and the schemes that he runs. I think we need to bring everybody. We need to go back to that Manny Diaz feisty defense. I think someone on Twitter earlier today or yesterday put up a rankings right now of like the top 15, top 20 teams with I think sacks, and we're nowhere near it. We're not even in the top 20. Or it was either that or tackles for loss. Let me see, what was it? So the top defenses with the most sacks. Number 1 was Pittsburgh with 31. Clemson, number 2 at 24. Duke, number 3 at 21. You got teams like Tulane, NC State, Virginia Tech, West Virginia, Coastal Carolina, Liberty, Middle Tennessee. These are all schools that have more sacks than the University of Miami. That is, you talk about, we got 2 future first-round draft picks and Quincy Roche and Jalen Phillips before the season started. Another one in Greg Rousseau. We had Chance Williams, Jafari Harvey. We were talking about having the top defensive ends in the country with this elite pass rush, and we haven't seen it. Half of it has to do with the referees not calling holdings every other play. Jalen Phillips probably leads all of college football with most non-holding calls. But I still think we need to bring more pressure. And a lot of that has to do with Blake Baker. But in this last football game, it had to do with, I brought it up earlier, but the 3 quarterback system for Virginia, that was very hard to stop. You're literally talking about 3 quarterbacks on the team on the football field at the same time. You had 98, I think it was Armstead, right? Who was out on the wide receiver for a lot, who can do pretty much everything. He could catch, he could run and throw. Then you had the other quarterback, number 5, who can throw as well. So they were able to mix up a lot of stuff to where it took us some time to kind
Right.
of figure out who to contain. Because as soon as one guy got the ball, you didn't know if the other guy was going to throw it. It was almost like
Right.
every play could have been a double pass.
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, we did make second half adjustments. We did
Yes.
do that in the
Yes.
second half. And plus, if you only give up 14 points a game, you're
I'll take
expected to win the football game. So,
and like I said, man, I'm still not sold on Blake Baker, but I tweeted this earlier in the week, and if there's going to be any negativity on the Virginia game, it should be more towards Lashley and not Baker, in my opinion.
right.
I think
Absolutely.
Lashley, this was the week that Lashley did not bring it, and Baker did.
Brad, second half of the season, I feel like I blinked and it just went by. Overall, anything that you want to, any concerns, anything that you were surprised with, or anything that you were maybe in a positive way you were surprised with the first half of the season, maybe some improvements you want to see going into the second half. It is kind of interesting. We do have a bye week in the middle of the season. It's a test for Manny Diaz. It really is, and he's got to prove us wrong because he's 0 for 4 right now.
Things I was proud of so far midway through the season. For one, I would have to say Bubba Bolden.
Yeah.
We saw all a glimpse of what he could be last year. And, I mean, we had a lot of high standards for him, and the guy has absolutely killed it. He's brought a whole different mentality to this football team. He is kind of our De'Aaron King on defense. He kind of brings everyone together. I think him was a big positive, and also I would say Don Chaney. I know before the season started, I was very high on Jalen Knighton.
Yep.
I thought he was going to be that guy, and I still think he could be that guy. And we talked about the three-headed monster that we potentially could have at running back this year with all three of those guys. And Don Chaney has kind of took it up to that next level already. And I love what I'm seeing from him. He's very physical. He seems like a guy that could take 20 carries in a football game already, and I like that. As far as negatives, linebacker group, that was my number one concern before the season started, was linebackers. And it continues to be a topic every week. It seems like our most consistent linebackers are hurt, which is Sam Brooks. We We're wondering about Avery Huff. That's another guy that, I mean, if you saw a picture of Avery Huff, you thought he would be like an NFL Pro Bowl linebacker already. And he barely sees the field because, unfortunately, apparently he doesn't know the playbook, but it's his second year in the defense. So I'm a little concerned about that. And I'm still a little worried about the defensive players that are being played a lot more than others due to the seniority on the football team, because some of these guys obviously shouldn't be playing right now.
Zach McLeod, we've seen in the group chat we're a part of, someone broke it down. I won't say specifically, kind of Zach McLeod's, and compared him to Sam Brooks, I believe, or was it Corey Flagg, one or the other, and it was night and day. You know, I
it was Corey Flagg.
Corey Flagg. I mean, he was attacking the ball runner, and Zach McLeod was kind of, just looking for him. Corey Flagg just completely identified him, ran through the gap. It's a true freshman. You're comparing him for a upperclassman veteran player. And why do we continuously see a veteran presence, Brad? I don't understand that. We saw that with Scott Patchin. We're seeing that with Amari Carter, who gets ejected in 2 minutes into every game. Zach McLeod as well. I don't get it. I don't understand it. It's kind of a waste of time.
It is, man. And you see we're starting to get bit in the butt a lot every year with certain guys that were taking over others. Don't get me wrong, Mike Harley had a nice game this past week, but I mean, this is a guy that we took over Tutu Atwell and Elijah Moore, who are both killing it. And this goes back to, I mean, guys like Amari Carter, Lamar Jackson, Jerry Jeudy. These are all guys that we missed out on in our own backyard that could have made a difference in the program. And I think a lot of it just has to do with the coaching, man. We've never had a quite elite coaching group. There's always only been that one guy, and they kind of leave, or it just doesn't work out. But we still got some ways to go. I don't think most of us thought this was going to be the year where we were going to the playoffs or winning the Natty. I thought the ultimate goal was to get to the ACC championship, and show that we could compete with a team like Clemson, go to a good bowl game and win. And I think that's all we kind of really need at this point for this year to kind of stay where we're at as far as recruiting. It could hopefully pick up if we kind of run the table. We'll see. But I mean, I still want Lashley here for a couple of years. That's a guy that, like, I know some fans are like, oh, we need to get rid of Lashley. No way. Like, I mean, you want to talk about night and day. The offensive play calling, as much as we're complaining about it, I mean, we're nitpicking. We're not really complaining because, I mean, night and day from last year to this year, it's very different. And De'Aaron King, man, I'm very interested to see what happens next year if he comes back. From everything I've heard, he might indeed come back.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think De'Aaron King, I'm not a NFL evaluator by all means, but what I see from De'Aaron King, I see a college football playmaker. You know, I think that's what everyone has identified him. I don't see him as a NFL quarterback. I don't know if he fits a wide receiver position in the NFL. I don't think he's fast enough. I don't think he's a running back. So I don't really know where to put him in the NFL. I don't think he's an NFL player. I really don't. So I think another year of college football, I mean, I think can only help him, maybe improve his stock as an NFL quarterback if he wants to take that route, but I just don't see it right now happening. Brad, before we go into this show, talk some recruiting, get into other topics, you brought up a very good point. I think you and Derek Coe were talking about a specific situation.
Yes.
If Notre Dame runs the table, they lose to Clemson and they get the tiebreaker over Miami, is that better than Miami going to the ACC title game and playing Clemson again? And I want the fans to answer that question as well, yes or no. And then, Brad, you had a kind of a logic to it.
Yeah, so, I mean, me, you, and a couple guys, D-Money, and a few other ones, we kind of went in depth with it, and I could kind of see both points of view. But me being as much as I love Miami, we are not – I don't think regardless what happens these next 3 to 4 games, I personally don't think we are ready to face a team like Clemson again yet. So in my opinion, I think if Notre Dame runs the table, they lose one game to Clemson, and we run the table, and we both have one loss each. Okay, I personally think that the media is going to take Notre Dame over Miami, which a lot of Miami fans might be pissed off about. But me and Derek were talking about the scenario that, let's say Notre Dame plays Clemson in the ACC championship. They get their second run at them instead of us. They're not going to win. They're going to lose, obviously, to Clemson again. I just don't see anybody beating Clemson unless it's Alabama. So you're talking about a 2-loss Notre Dame team. At that point, we will still only have one loss, where then the Orange Bowl committee has the opportunity to decide if they want a 2-loss Notre Dame team to make the appearance in the Orange Bowl or a 1-loss Miami team to make the appearance in the Orange Bowl, which then we would obviously be the home team, and it would be right back in Miami. Let's just say that doesn't happen. In my eyes, I think if this team, as bad as we played against Clemson, if we find a way to run the table and only have one loss going into our bowl game and we are not playing Clemson again, I think a lot of fans and a lot of the college football media and a lot of recruits that we are going after that we don't think we have a chance at right now, they will kind of forget about that Clemson loss. And they're going to be looking at a Miami football team that only has one loss that could potentially be playing a team like Florida, Michigan, teams that I think we can beat. And I think that can make a lot of dividends moving forward for not only this recruiting class, but for 2022 and 2023. And let's not forget, even if we don't play a team like Clemson again this year, we have to turn around and play Alabama week 1 the following year. So we're going to be in the spotlight regardless. So I just think, me personally, I don't think we're ready for Clemson again, and I think it would be better for everything, recruits and everything. But I can see both points of view. I know a lot of fans are like, "Hey, no, I want them again. I want to see if we could beat them. I want to pull the upset." But I just don't know if we can do it. But we'll see.
Well, if we're going to beat Clemson, we got to have less than 5 penalties. That would be nice instead of 13 penalties and 135 yards in penalties. So we'll see about that moving forward. But, you know, we still got to beat NC State. We got to beat the teams left on the schedule. I think after NC State,
Correct.
do we have Virginia Tech?
Yep. And we got Virginia Tech, Wake Forest, North Carolina. And Ben Pratt put it so he wants to play Clemson to see if we improve. That's the only way to get better. So here's my thing to that. If we're comparing this football team to last year, can't we already honestly say that if we end up running the table anyways with the one loss that we've already improved and got better? So I mean, if we're going to compare this football team, we can't really compare it on a week-to-week basis because we need to compare it on the previous year as well, because we're going from a terrible season last year to improving significantly already. We have already proved that we have beat teams that we're supposed to beat so far. Now the point is we need to prove that we could win off of a bye. I think that's the next step. We need to prove that we could beat NC State, because like I was talking about earlier, as much as I would like us to run the table and be only one loss, if we don't win to NC State, this could be a bad domino effect happening.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. And that's the importance, of winning every week. It's the improvement of last year. Because I think we lose to UVA if we played them last year. If we had Jaron Williams as our quarterback. If we had kind of the same team, same culture in a sense. Brad, before we get into recruiting, I know everyone loves to talk recruiting. The tweet about Cam Harris, I know there was a little conversation going on about it. What was that about? I know you also had a perspective on it as well. I thought it was a good one because Cam, like you mentioned, he was the one calling out the bad energy on the football team last season. Now it seems like he is that bad energy in a sense.
So yeah, when I first saw the tweet, I was a little surprised because, like you just mentioned, I remember him being one of those vocal guys, him and DJ Dallas in the locker room, kind of getting on the guys like Jaron Williams and Jeff Thomas and a few other guys that just weren't really in it. And he just seemed like one of those guys where like he was bought in 100%. So to see him tweet something like that, it was a little eye-popping to me because I was a little shocked because I was starting to worry that this culture and this bad energy that we had in the locker room in previous years, we were starting to see that it was gone. So I was a little concerned that maybe it wasn't gone because we just talked about a guy who last season was that guy, and now it's starting to seem like he's on the opposite end. But with Rhett Lashley's press conference, it's just a young man that's frustrated and not getting more touches. But I mean, you turn on the film, man, and the last 3 games, every time we gave him the ball, he just hasn't done well. I don't know what that might be, but I mean, Knighton and Chaney just give us another gear that we were missing. But again, I think it goes back to one of the key things that I need to see improvement for the rest of the year, and that's De'Aaron King's decision making on those RPOs, because I think that alone will help Cam Harris.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. And that's something I'm going to be interested in the second half of the season. How does our run game develop overall? Will it be consistent, or is it really going to be a weakness of the offense? Like we've seen the past 2 games and past 3 games completely out of our, offense. It really, you can't run for 11 yards and think you have a successful offense. It's just not going to happen.
And here's the thing. There's specific things that we look at every single week where we're like, this obviously needs to get better or it hasn't improved. I saw someone earlier chime in about, hey, we only scored 19 in Virginia. How did we not improve? Look at last year compared to this year. We're averaging more points every single game. Even though we had 19 this game, we had 31 against Pitt. I mean, we're putting up points. We're averaging more points per game this year than we were last year. The eyesore is last year compared to this year. I believe last year, our rushing defense was 17th in the country, and right now, I believe like it's in the 40s or 50s.
I see.
So our rushing defense needs to get better. I think that's been our problem with this Blake Baker bend don't break. Anytime we face a team that has a quarterback that's able to run and throw the ball, or a running team, that's where the quarterback could easily just pick us apart. And we look at moving forward, teams like Virginia Tech and North Carolina, those are teams, and Georgia Tech, those are all teams that can run the football, and 2 out of 3 of those teams can throw the football as well. So those are going to be interesting games moving forward to see if we continue to do this whole bend and don't break, because it could turn out bad.
Question by Les Aguilera. Paul or Brad, what worries you not showing up against NC State? Our offense or defense?
I would have to say our offense.
Yes, I agree.
Coming off the bye, just because I want to see how Lashley comes out. I'm not too worried about NC State's offense. That's the only reason why. I think if they end up playing the freshman at quarterback, which I believe they will, in Ben Finley, that's one of those guys where they're gonna play a conservative play calling the whole game. They don't want to give him too much because he doesn't really know too much of the playbook. But he's a guy where all they want is to him not make the crucial mistakes. Because the other quarterback that they could have, which I believe is Bailey Hawkman, he only has like 2 or 3 touchdowns, but he has like 8 interceptions. So right. he throws a lot of interceptions. So I think the key for NC State is they're going to want to play very simple play calling. And that's a team that also has been struggling to run the football. So they're going to try to establish the run as well. So it's gonna be a good test for our defense, like I just talked about earlier with the rushing defense. We're going to have to step it up.
And I'm not expecting to see Bailey Hawkman in this game. He's an awful quarterback. You're going to see the true freshman Finley in this game, the third-string quarterback. I think that's the guy who they're going to go out with, and he's pretty good. He played pretty well against UNC. Brad, let's jump into recruiting. I don't want to talk about Jake Garcia first, but I think we're coming to the stage where the staff is moving on from Jake Garcia. Andrew Ivan stated they don't have that leverage with Jake Garcia saying, hey, either you commit now or we move on. I think he's going to hold tight with USC. But you never know in recruiting, but it seems like that.
Yeah, it's still got about a couple more weeks. I would say the deadline would be Thanksgiving. If things don't heat up or pick up by Thanksgiving, I would kind of say that ship sailed. As far as Jake Garcia. I think moving forward, this team's already offering some 2022 guys. So as far as the 2021 class, I don't think we add another quarterback. And the way the season's played out, I don't see why Derek King would leave. So that would leave King and Tyler Van Dyke next year, because me personally, I think if Derek King comes back, I could see N'Kosi Perry transferring to like a smaller Florida school just to try and get some playing time, to try and get drafted or get to the league on a practice squad, just because, he's got a very young daughter. So, family comes first, and he's going to do whatever he can to try and make some money. It's going to be similar to like the Joseph Yearby situation, although he didn't leave Miami. It's just one of those situations where he needs to find a way to get that paycheck. So I wouldn't be surprised if N'Kosi Perry goes to like a South Florida or FAU or FIU.
Do you think even Derek King comes back, we tap into the transfer portal just looking for the future?
I don't think we need to. I think Lashley has his eyes set on at least 1 or 2 2022 guys, and those will be the guys that he brings in instead of the portal. I think regardless, we're going to go in the portal along with like half of college football, just because we're midway through the football season, and we're seeing like big names and pretty good guys all around college football that are already saying, hey, we're going to go into the portal. And there's going to be a lot of opportunities to kind of get certain position groups to that next level by adding more portal guys like we've been doing. So we'll see. I believe the defensive tackle from LSU just announced he was going to the portal. I think it was LSU, but that's a big time target. But no, I don't see why we would go after a quarterback. I'm looking more at like receiver possibly, or defensive line and linebackers, and definitely corners. I think we need to go after at least 1 or 2 corners in the portal, because currently, talking about recruiting, the only corner we had to look at was a Markevius Brown. From everything I've heard, he's probably going to Virginia Tech. So a new guy has been out. If anyone has seen, Mike Rump has offered Marvin Covington. He's a 5'11", 180-pound corner out of Mansfield, Texas. He's very fast in the 100-meter. If you turn on his tape, though, it doesn't really impress me too much. But, of course, as soon as Rump and staff offered him, Houston offered him right after, and I know Texas is starting to look after him now. So you kind of compare that situation to like the Zach Rice situation, where like as soon as Zach Rice got offered by Miami, he kind of blew up. It's starting to trend that way for Covington. So even if we were looking at him, it's starting to look like he's getting some more offers. But at the end of the day, I don't see any guy in the 21 class for cornerback that could help this program more than a guy in the portal.
And Markevious Brown is still in play. People close to him, as stated by Andrew Ivins, want him to go to Miami. They like Miami, but it seems like, according to Andrew Ivins, stated he's waiting for an offer that he hasn't been offered yet by a certain school. Mm-hmm. So he may not end up as a Miami Hurricane. The past month, it did seem like he was going to be a Miami Hurricane. Not anymore. So we cannot go into next year with only one corner in this class, which could lead us in the transfer portal. And I think D. Delaney was the last transfer corner we had. Adrian
Javonte Dean, too.
Yeah, he was a JUCO guy. Yep, JUCO guy. He went to Southgate Senior High School, was committed to Alabama. Didn't work out. So, yeah, I mean, we got to land corners. I mean, most definitely that is a position of concern. Development as well would be helpful.
And I mean, we only had 2 corners in this class, but now it looks like we only have 1 because I think Malik Curtis is going to be a wide receiver.
Okay.
And that kind of has me interested to see what happens with a bunch of the current wide receivers on our team going forward for next year, because I think we're like, if everybody stays on this team for a receiver, we're like 14, 15 guys deep. So I honestly would rather have 2 or 3 guys on this team that start a lot of these football games. I wouldn't mind them leaving because I think some of these younger guys have more to prove.
Amari Daniels, what's going on with him? It seems like we don't have any room, and the coaching staff doesn't want to take 2 running backs, but he did announce a top 2 with Georgia, Texas A&M. Seemed like he kind of backtracked from that, saying he wasn't going to make a decision soon. I think ultimately the staff just doesn't have room for him, and they're like, hey, can you just wait? Is that what's going on?
So I think it's just a little bit of miscommunication. Okay. I think the staff was a little surprised when he dropped the top 2 that Miami wasn't in it. And as soon as they found out that Miami wasn't in his top 2, they kind of reached out to him, and they kind of hashed some things out. And then Amari was like, all right, well, let me take a step back and kind of reevaluate some things. Because we do indeed only have 2 spots left, but if anyone's who follows our boy Gabby Uridia, he talked about the other day how Savion Collins is starting to play a lot more guard than defensive tackle, and it kind of looks like that Miami's kind of cooled off on him. They haven't talked to him in about a month and a half, and it seems like almost every team that's offered him has cooled off on him. A lot of teams are starting to say that they don't see him as a defensive tackle. So that's why you're starting to see him play offensive line more to try and see if any teams could kind of offer him. But I honestly wouldn't be surprised if we drop Savion Collins, or if we kind of just wait until last minute and see if a guy like Mason Smith, Tyreek Sapp, Terrence Lewis, Jaden Hood, one of those defensive guys that we're not expecting to get, if we could land them with Amari Daniels and another guy, that's her 2 to 3 spots right there.
$2 donation from a dead chipmunk. What NFL teams has the most history? We don't cover the NFL, but what do you, Brad? Are we just going to go with the 72 Dolphins and call it a wrap, or you're a Cowboys guy?
I was going to say, man, you got to go with at least a team with 5 rings. No, but I would say Pittsburgh.
Steelers, man, gotta love it. There you go, man. I got nothing on that. I've never been a real NFL guy. I would say Cowboys. It is America's team. Michael Irvin, Jimmy Johnson, Jerry Jones.
The only reason why I didn't say my Cowboys is just because I feel like Pittsburgh has been at least more consistent in this era, in like the last 10, 15 years, as far as being somewhat relevant compared to us. And then you talk about the past, we both kind of done things in the past. So,
all right. 10 minutes left. Let's do a quick Q&A, everyone. Might be a dumb question, but a thought. Could Pope be a Sam Shields? Remember, Sam Shields was a 5-star wide receiver coming into the program, then switched to the defensive side of the football in our secondary because he could not catch. Do Do you see any position switches at all? I mean, just in general, moving forward, I don't see any that I can think of right now.
The only ones I could think of is, man, I hate to bring him up, but Mr. Employee of the Month at Target, that's Amari Carter. We can put Amari.
That was a good one.
we can put Amari Carter at linebacker for sure. I wasn't disappointed with the way Gilbert played at safety the few times he had to play. So moving forward, I could see Amari Carter at linebacker, and even trying to think that, man, there's got to be like even Gervin Hall, man. Unfortunately, Gervin Hall hasn't took that next step at safety. So I wouldn't mind seeing him at like linebacker or striker too. I just think we need to find a way to get some of these linebackers off the field. I don't want to see a McLeod, a Jennings, because I mean, moving forward, man, these guys there's going to be teams we're going to play that are going to eat that up, and it's going to be too late.
Collins did an interview the other day and said he is locked in with Miami. Talked to Manny and Blake Baker last week regarding anyone in this class, anyone to look out for moving forward that may jump from the class, just to look out for. No. Leonard Taylor.
I'm still confident. I'm still confident that Collins might not end up in this class. I'm pretty close with Gabby, and I'm confident that if there is a guy that leaves this class, it's going to be Collins. But I don't see anyone else in this class leaving.
Brad, do you think we beat NC State or do we lay an egg? I'm going to say we win by a field goal, game-winning field goal. That's what I got.
I could see a 23-20 win. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. The cardiac cane strike again, man. I love it. God, the Miami Hurricanes, they stress me the F out. Like, sincerely, man. Every week, they manage to find a way to really stress me out. I don't get it. I don't know what it is about this decade of Miami Hurricanes football. I really hope it changes moving forward. Brad, another $2 donation. Do you think Miami, how good of a football team do you think Miami is compared to other top 25 programs?
I wouldn't say we're a top 10 program. I would say we're probably like 15 to 20. 15 to 20. I do think it's a little absurd. I mean, I don't really pay attention to the rankings just because they change every week. But I mean, I think it is absurd that you have teams that have only played 2 football games and yet they're ranked higher than us and have the same record, like, of losses. Like a team like Florida, I don't know how they're ranked so high still after only playing 2 or 3 games. But hey, most of their team has COVID. I wouldn't be surprised if they lose to Missouri this weekend. So,
which draft eligible player could benefit from another year at Miami? I'll say this. How about Jalen Phillips? He doesn't have a lot of tape on him. Quincy Roche as well. Get another year at the Power 5 level. How about those two guys?
That's exactly what I was going to say. I was going to say Quincy Roche is who I would say. Just because Jalen Phillips, me personally, I think he doesn't have enough stats to go, but I could still see him going. But Quincy Roche is the guy for me that can make a difference on this football team for next year too. You talk about the defensive line for next year. Let's just say Jalen Phillips, Quincy Roche, and Nesta Silvera are like the 3 kind of guys that we are looking at if they're going to leave or not. Because, I mean, we're hoping Zach McLeod leaves. We don't know about Bradley Jennings. But as far as the defensive line, you got Quincy Roche, Jalen Phillips, and Nesta are the only 3 guys that you would say would leave. So let's say all 3 of those guys leave. Then you're left the following year with Jafari Harvey and Cam Williams as your 2 starting defensive ends. And then behind them, you'll have Chance Williams, Jabril Ishmael, Patrick Joyner, Quentin Williams, Elijah Roberts. And then you could possibly have Tyler Johnson, which is Jaquan Johnson's younger brother, for the following class, who's a linebacker and a defensive end. I think he's going to be better suited for defensive end. And then also Chase Smith. It'll be interesting to figure out if we put him at D end or linebacker. But that's pretty much your D ends. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of talent there. But man, it would really benefit if Quincy Roche or Jalen Phillips came back and added like some veteran leadership to that. You know, same thing with defensive tackle. But I think if Nesta does decide like, hey, I want to leave, because that's a guy that, as crazy as this sounds, I could see him wanting to leave after this year. As long as he stays where he's been doing, he'll be okay with like a third, fourth round pick. And he'll leave if that's the case. You look at our D tackle group. If he leaves, we have a lot of guys, in my opinion, that can step up. So I'm not worried about D tackle, but the DN, I wouldn't mind a veteran staying.
Yeah, that's a good point. People are saying, guys like Zach McLeod, who another year they're probably not going to get drafted. Are they going to return? How much depth are we going to provide next year with the free year of eligibility that we had this past season? But hey, we'll find out. Let's get through NC State first. Is it too early because it's a bye week to have a prediction, Brad? Or do we want to wait for next week? All right, we'll wait for next week.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, you got it. 123 people live with us tonight. Thank you so much, Brad. Hope you're feeling better, man. It's always a pleasure to have you on, man. And
of course, brother.
We'll definitely have a big-time show next week.
Yeah.
And then we'll get you with some A-list guests because the plans we have going on for next week are huge. So you don't want to miss it.
Yeah, well, we'll try to do a little mid-season preview before the NC State game.
That's right.
And see if we could get something rolling here soon, and we'll figure it out.
Mid-season roundtable with first, what's it called? First-time Hall of Fame ballot list of guests. So
for sure.
Love it, man. All right, guys. Hope everyone has a great night. And always, all about the U.
Yes, sir.
And that's a